Hi there, crafty friends. Welcome and thank you for joining me. Today, I thought we would make a card using Honeybee Stamp's Lovely Layers Fireplace along with the Fireplace Lodge Add On. And this is a great set. You get so many pieces in here. I love the little TV, even though we are not using that today. You've got a couple pots and some cactus images along with a clock, but we are sticking to the rope, the boots, the hat, and our buck here. So let's go ahead and get started. And we will start by building our fireplace. I am using all the pieces except for one there. And I did get everything already die cut because the die cutting is the most time consuming. But our fireplace is our main focal image. So we're going to start with that. But first, let's go over our pieces. I've cut everything out of truffle cardstock and raven. I am using Spellbinders cardstock. Everything will be listed and linked in the description below. I've got all my pieces here. And we want to start with our main fireplace piece here. So all of our dies, well, not all of them, but most of them have embossed marks in them. And I want that to show up just a little bit more. I've got my fog cardstock here, and I am going to take my ink pad. This is Rocky Slope, and I am just going to ink up that die. I want to be able to see those marks really, really well. So I'm just going to rub my ink pad on those raised marks on my die so we can get that brickwork in there. And then I will just place that die right on my cutting plate and run that through my machine. And that way we just get a little bit more detail. So it looks a little sloppy right in here, but that's okay because we will be covering up that area. But I just wanted to be able to see those bricks in there. So now we can add a little bit of accent to our brown pieces. I'm just bringing in espresso, and I just want to add a little bit of detail to those items that will be in the forefront of our fireplace. I just want them a little bit darker, not all of them, but we will be coloring in a few here. And I love how the embossed marks on all these dies just really add so much detail to your card. And then we need to do our little logs. So I've got shading on most of our brown pieces there, not all of them. We do want some definition, but we don't want them all to be the same. So next I'm going to do my fire. I'm bringing in a little persimmon for my orange flame. And I'm just going to add color at the base of that, just so it looks a little darker. Then I've got some marigold for my yellow flame. And I'll even bring in a little of that persimmon on the bottom of my yellow flame, just to give it a little more detail. And then I need to add a little color to my fireplace piece. This is our insert. And I don't need to be especially careful here because this is going to be dirty anyways. This is where our fire goes. So it's going to look like it's all full of soot. Just a little bit of color, just like that. I did do 2 of this piece and I will stack those. I will add that there. And everything comes together really easily here. I'll just show you real quick. All our pieces, you can see where they all go. We've got our layering pieces. Our fireplace is coming along nicely. We've just got a few more accent pieces. We've got 4 little rectangles here that just go on the top and the bottom of our columns. Then we've got our firebox insert piece here, and you can feel where that goes. That just goes right in that little cutout area. Then we just need to build our fire. And I am going to bring in my scissors and I am going to cut these pieces. I am going to cut one log in half, and I will put each half at the bottom of my fireplace there. Then I will bring in my first flame, and I am going to bring that up a little bit because we are going to put another log on top of that. Then I'll bring in my second flame. We'll bring in another log and place that right in front of the flames. Then I am also going to cut my last little log, and we can kind of tuck that behind our flame and give the look of more logs back behind there. And just like that, our little fireplace is all put together. Let's put that aside. And we're actually going to skip around a little bit here. Let's get our background done before we assemble our other pieces. And I'm not even sure if this paper pack is still available, but I want everybody to go into their stash and find a piece of patterned paper. We all have it. We all hoard it. Let's use it. So I went through my stash. I found this, and I chose this because we are doing a much larger card than normal today. Today we are doing a 5x7 because I want to be able to fit everything on my background. I have cut my base piece 5x7, then my layering piece, which I'm going to be using as kind of a wallpaper. I cut that slightly smaller, and I want to have like wainscoting. So I've got a piece, I believe this is about 2 inches tall by 7, so we can make sure that fits on our card. And we are going to add dimension just by adding some score marks on our paper. And I am going a 1/4 inch all the way down on this paper. So I've got my background already. I've got my scored piece here. We've got our score marks every 1/4 inch. I added a thin strip of brown to the top and the bottom to act as molding. Then I added that to my wallpaper piece here. And then I added everything to my layering panel. So let's go ahead and add our fireplace. So now we can go ahead and set this aside and work on some more pieces. So next we're bringing in the Lodge add-on set. And again, I've die cut all this because everything is very time consuming when you're die cutting. And I just wanted to make this a little quicker. We have our cowboy boots. I have die cut those 4 times because we are doing 2 sets of cowboy boots. I've got our little base here to mount our buck. I've got his antlers. We've got our hat, our rope, and then we've got the little deer's face or the buck. And I had to cut that 3 times. I cut it from black, from truffle, and then from fawn so we can make his face. But before we get on to assembling all our pieces here, I just wanted to show you what I did with my saloon. We've got the saloon die, and it again has the impression marks. It's going to leave embossed etched marks in our image, but I want a little bit more accent on that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do basically the same thing that we did with our fireplace, but we are just going to tap ink onto this die. And for this, I'm using dough, and we're just going to go all the way around. We're just going to tap ink onto that. Then we can place that die on our cardstock and run that through our machine. And then you can see, once we get that die off of there, we can really see those letters. They are much more accented, and I just love that look. It actually kind of looks like leather. And I did that same little trick with my buck's head and his face. I also did that on my cowboy boots and my hats. So let's take a look at our cowboy boots first. For each pair, I had to cut my cowboy boots twice. We are doing 2 pairs, and I want to add a little bit more accent to my cowboy boots. So I am going to bring in my dark ink. This is espresso. You get 2 die cuts. with one pass. You get your boot that has more accent on it, and you get your boot that is smoother. The smoother piece is going to go in the back, but we can see our heel and a little bit of the top of the boot. So I'm just going to highlight those with some ink. That way, when I adhere the front of the boot to the other piece, we will see that heel come through. See how now we have the accent of that heel and the back of the boot? So let's add our pieces to our boots, and we've got 4 little pieces here. We've got our little spur, and then we've got some accent pieces, and we are just going to add those. This little piece here just goes on the back boot, and then for the front of our boot, we will add, I'm not sure what this piece is called, but this is the piece that our spur attaches to. We'll put that there. And then we've got one more little accent piece that goes right on top of that spur. Then we can glue our 2 boots together, and that way they look like they're sitting next to each other. And I did 2 pairs of boots because we're going to have 2 hats. And this is the little accent piece that just goes right there on your hat. We'll glue that on there. And then we've got our deer. I am going to have 2 of them, actually our buck. I will be having 2, so I already did 1, and it's very simple to assemble. We're just going to add the face first, and you can see where that goes because it lines up right where his antlers go back behind there. Then we'll add his little snout, and I thought he looked like a cow at first, but as soon as we get his nose and his eyes on there, he definitely comes to life. And the eyes are very small, and he just comes to life really quickly. Let's add his antlers. I'll just put a little bit of glue on there. We can press that down. And he was assembled just as quickly as that. I will add a little bit of thin foam square right behind him before I put him on his little mount, just because I want to try to hold down those antlers, and we're going to give it a little bit more dimension. Then for our rope, we just need to add a little bit of glue right on there. And this is just the handle. And we're getting there. We've got more pieces put together for our scene. So next I'm bringing in a couple pieces from the Christmas Fireplace add-on. This is actually the holiday add-on. And we are bringing in the rocking chair and the little pillow. I wasn't sure what color pillow I wanted to use, so I did 1 out of Cosmic Sky and 1 out of Celestial. Then I've got my chair. We need to add a little bit of highlight to these 3 pieces down here. Then we can assemble that. And again, for my highlights, I'm just using my espresso ink. And I didn't add a lot of highlight, just a little bit. Now we can assemble our chair. I wanted a lot of elements in my card here. That's why we actually had to do it a 5x7. You know, typically I just do A2, but I decided to turn this into a 5x7 because I wanted to add so many elements to it. And you don't have to add these additional layers to your rocking chair here. I am just for more dimension. So now we've got our chair and our pillows. We can put that aside. So next we're bringing in some elements from the Halloween Fireplace add-on. I am bringing in the lamp, the candlestick. We've got our little blanket we're going to put on our rocking chair. And then I'm also bringing in the garland. I cut 2 of the garland, 1 out of fog, 1 out of truffle. Then we've got our accent leaves. These go on our acorns. I've got my piece out of fog. I am going to cut my little acorns off of there. I will adhere them to my fog piece, and then I can add the lighter layer of the acorn on there. Then we can add our leaves. And I did add a little bit of ink to my leaves just to give a little more dimension. And there's our little garland. That came out so cute. So this one is a little tricky. This is our lamp here, and we are going to take our lamp and we are going to trim the top of it off because I am going to turn this lamp into a coat rack. So we also need the candles off of the candlestick. And this is just another way to get a little creative with your die cuts and make other objects out of them. So we've taken that lamp, we're going to discard the shade. We will add 2 of the candles to add the arms for our coat rack, and then we will take this 3rd candle and we're just going to add it to the top to extend that coat rack a little bit. So we can add some glue to that candle. Then we'll add a little bit of glue to our other candles. So there we've got our very own custom-made coat rack. We used the lamp and the candlesticks. So I think now we are finally ready to assemble our card. Let's kind of figure out where we want everything. I know I'm going to want my saloon right in the center. I'm going to put 1 buck on each side. We've got our rocking chair. And then my coat rack is going to go over here on the right-hand side. But first we need to add our rope. Let's put a little bit of glue right behind that rope because I want that rope to hang on that coat rack. But I am going to cut that little flame off. I've added my rope. Now we will add our hats. We'll set that aside to set up. I added a little foam tape behind my bucks and my saloon sign. Now we've got our little hat rack, and I'm going to put some foam square behind my hats, which is going to kind of help hold them to my coat rack, and it's going to give them a little bit of dimension. Then I will add a little bit of glue just to the base of that coat rack. Now we can add our boots. Then we've got our rocking chair we can add right here, and I'm going to angle that just a little bit. I put liquid glue behind that. And then I want to add our pillow and our blanket. You know what? I think we're going to go with the lighter pillow and the darker blanket. Let's just put a little bit of liquid glue back behind here to hold that on there. We'll just drape that blanket over the arm. We've got our pillow in there. And this is coming along so cute. I know that we worked out of order, but that was mostly because I wanted to highlight the different sets and what we used from each set instead of just bulking it all together. So let's trim our fireplace grate just a little bit, and then we will add that. We'll just hold that down for a minute. So I'm just adding a little bit of foam square behind my acorns. Then we've got our little garland. And that card is done. It came out so cute. I apologize for jumping around, but we were kind of working in sections. We had to do certain things before we could actually assemble. We've got our coat rack. We've got our garland from the fall set. We've got our rocking chair. And I think it is wonderful. Our happy birthday came from Spellbinders Always and Forever set. I already had these all hot foiled, so I just pulled a sentiment out of there. I don't think we even need any gems on here. It's perfect. Thank you so much for sticking with me through all that. Everything I used today will be listed and linked in the description. Please give me a thumbs up. Please leave me a comment, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.